अगर आप सक्सेसफुल बनना चाहते हो तो बस ये 7 हैबिट्स फॉलो करो, लाइफ 100% चेंज हो जाएगी।
Imagine for a second that you are completely lost in downtown Chicago.
Hmm.
You know, you're stressed out, you're late, and you are trying desperately to find this specific building.
Right, the absolute worst feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So you decide to work on your behavior, you push harder on the gas pedal, you zip through those yellow lights, you basically double your speed, but you're still lost.
Because effort doesn't change the map.
Exactly. So then you try working on your attitude, right? You repeat positive affirmations. You tell yourself, hey, I'm enjoying the scenery. You put on an upbeat playlist.
Oh, yeah, the classic toxic positivity approach.
Yeah. And you might feel a little happier, but you are fundamentally still nowhere near your destination. And why? Because the map you were handed, by pure accident, is actually a map of Detroit.
Yeah, driving faster on the wrong map. It just gets you to the wrong place a lot quicker.
It really does. And that is the core illusion we are tackling in our deep dive today. Welcome in, by the way. Today we are unpacking the 25th anniversary edition of Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
A massive, massive text.
Oh, huge. We are looking at the core text alongside a foreword by the business researcher Jim Collins and a family tribute to Covey. Our mission for you listening right now is not to just walk away with some cute checklist of 7 life hacks.
Right, because that's what everybody wants, but it's not what works.
Exactly. We want to look at why your underlying operating system, like not your effort and not your attitude, is usually the real reason you feel stuck.
You know, Jim Collins actually uses a really brilliant analogy in his foreword that builds perfectly on that idea of an operating system.
Oh, the GUI analogy.
Yeah, the GUI. He points out that before companies like Apple and Microsoft came along, computers possessed this massive world-changing processing power. But everyday people just couldn't harness it.
Because you needed to know all that complex command line code.
Right, exactly. You had to be a programmer. What those companies did was invent the graphical user interface, the GUI. They gave us the mouse, the folders, the clickable icons.
Making it actually usable.
Precisely. And Collins argues that for centuries, humanity has accumulated this profound wisdom about personal effectiveness from, philosophers, leaders, thinkers. But Covey essentially built the user interface for it.
Wow, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, he took centuries of complex behavioral psychology and philosophy and organized it into a system that anyone can basically just click and drag into their daily life.
I love that. And to understand why that user interface was so necessary, the sources take us on a bit of a historical detour. Covey actually reviewed 200 years of success literature in America.
200 years?
Yeah, pretty exhaustive. And he noticed this massive structural shift that happened right around the end of World War I. So for the first 150 years, the literature focused almost exclusively on what he calls the character ethic.
Which is all about the deep stuff, right?
Yeah, foundational traits. We're talking integrity, humility, justice, industry. You think of Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, which was fundamentally about slowly integrating deep principles into your core nature.
But then, post-World War I, the focus completely pivots. It shifts to the personality ethic.
Oh, completely?
Success literature suddenly became obsessed with public image. It was suddenly about quick fix influence techniques, power dressing communication strategies, and projecting this bulletproof positive mental attitude.
To smile your way to the top.
Right. And the danger of the personality ethic is that it treats human interactions like a mechanical problem that you can just patch with a quick software update.
Right, totally ignoring the fact that human relationships and human growth are natural systems. Okay, let's unpack this because the book uses a fantastic analogy to expose just how ridiculous this is. Think about a farm.
Oh, the cramming analogy.
Yes, you cannot cram on a farm.
Yeah.
You can't just skip planting the seeds in the spring, spend your entire summer goofing off, and then suddenly hustle in the fall to bring in a harvest.
I mean, you can try, but nature doesn't care.
Right. The system simply doesn't care about your last-minute all-nighter. You cannot trick nature.
You reap what you sow, quite literally. And yet, we try to use these quick-fix charm offensives to repair deeply broken trust in our relationships all the time.
Oh, all the time.
Covey actually shares a very vulnerable story about falling into this exact trap with his own son.
Oh, the baseball story.
Yeah. His son was struggling terribly. He was doing poorly academically, he was socially immature, and athletically, he was just completely uncoordinated. He would swing the baseball bat before the ball even left the pitcher's hand.
Oh, man.
And the other kids would laugh at him.
As a parent, watching your kid be the punchline has to be just agonizing.
It was tearing them apart. So Covey and his wife initially leaned hard into the personality ethic. They tried pumping him up with a positive mental attitude, cheering from the sidelines, saying,
You can do it. Keep your eye on the ball.
Exactly. They tried to shield him from the ridicule, and they offered conditional rewards if he just performed a little better.
Let me guess, none of that pep talking actually moved the needle.
It made things worse. The boy just broke down crying and insisted he was no good. The turning point came when Covey and his wife took a hard look at their own underlying motives.
The character underneath the personality.
Right. They realized that beneath all those cheerful, supportive words, their fundamental, unspoken perception was that their son was broken. He was inadequate. He was falling behind.
Wait, so the kid was basically detecting the hypocrisy. Like, the parents were saying you're a champion, but secretly broadcasting the anxiety of, we need to fix you.
That is the exact mechanism at play, yeah. Children, and frankly adults too, are incredibly perceptive to the emotional reality beneath our techniques. All the communication skills in the world couldn't mask that underlying belief.
Wow.
The boy felt the pressure of their disappointment. So Covey and his wife realized they couldn't just change their outward behavior, they had to change themselves. They had to stop tying their own parental ego to his social success.
They took away the magnifying glass.
They did. They stopped comparing him to other kids. They simply affirmed his intrinsic worth and let his natural personality emerge at its own pace.
And without that suffocating pressure of needing to be fixed, the son naturally blossomed, right?
Yeah, it wasn't an overnight life hack, but he eventually became a student leader and an all-state athlete. The superficial techniques failed completely, but the fundamental shift in character succeeded.
That deep shift in perception, changing how they fundamentally view their son, is what Covey defines as a paradigm.
Right.
A paradigm is a mental map. It's the lens through which we interpret reality.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to that Chicago and Detroit map analogy we started with. If you have the wrong map, a positive attitude doesn't help. You have to experience a paradigm shift.
You need a new map.
Right. But how does that actually happen in real life? Are we just waiting around for lightning to strike and change our minds?
Well, sometimes it actually does happen in a flash, usually forced by a sudden change in context. Covey experienced a famous, instantaneous paradigm shift on a Sunday morning subway ride in New York.
Oh, this story is intense.
It really is. So the car was quiet. People were reading and resting. Then a man gets on with his children, and these kids are completely chaotic.
Just totally out of control.
Yeah, they're yelling, throwing things, grabbing people's newspapers. The peaceful climate of the subway car is destroyed, and the father just sits there, staring at the floor, doing absolutely nothing to stop them.
I mean, I would be vibrating with frustration. It's just so deeply inconsiderate.
Everyone in the car was frustrated. So Covey finally turns to the man, holding back his temper, and asks if he could perhaps control his children a little more.
Which is a totally fair thing to ask.
Absolutely. But then the man lifts his head, kind of blinking as if he's waking up from a daze, and softly says, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something. We just came from the hospital where their mother died an hour ago."
Oh, man.
Yeah. He says, "I don't know what to think, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either."
That completely takes the wind out of your sails. I mean, what a gut punch.
Yeah. But look at the mechanics of what happened in Covey's mind in that fraction of a second. What's fascinating here is his paradigm completely flipped. He didn't have to force a behavior change. Right, he didn't have to bite his tongue and pretend to have a positive attitude.
Exactly. Because he saw the situation through a completely new lens, he instantly felt differently, and he naturally behaved differently. His irritation evaporated, replaced immediately by genuine compassion.
The map changed, and everything else followed effortlessly.
Yep.
But wait, let me push back on this a little bit. It makes sense in a tragic, extreme situation like the subway. But for the rest of us, our paradigms are shaped by a lifetime of conditioning, family, school, work.
Oh, sure.
Are we really just stuck seeing the world through these biased lenses? Or is there an objective reality we can anchor to? Because if it's all just paradigms, it feels inescapable.
It really does feel that way, doesn't it? If we are all trapped in our own subjective lenses, it feels like complete relativism.
But the source material argues firmly that there is a bedrock layer beneath our maps.
Objective territory.
Right. To illustrate this, there's a story from a naval magazine about a battleship on maneuvers in heavy fog. The captain is on the bridge, and the lookout reports a light steady on the starboard bow, meaning they are on a direct collision course.
Yikes.
Yeah. The captain orders his signalman to flash a message. "We are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees.
Basically saying, hey, get out of my way.
Right. The reply flashes back. "Advisable for you to change course 20 degrees.
Oh, I'm sure the captain loved that.
Oh, he was feeling his authority challenged, so he sends, "I'm a captain, change course 20 degrees. The reply comes, "I'm a seaman second class. You'd better change course 20 degrees.
The audacity.
The captain is furious now. He flashes, "I am a battleship, change course 20 degrees.
And the ultimate mic drop.
The final reply flashes through the fog. "I am a lighthouse."
I am a lighthouse. The battleship had to change course. That is incredible.
The battleship captain experienced a paradigm shift, obviously, but the deeper lesson is about the lighthouse itself. While our paradigms are our subjective maps of the world, principles are the objective territory.
Right. Principles like fairness, integrity, human dignity.
Exactly. Honesty, service. They are unmoving. As the filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille noted, we cannot break these natural laws. We can only break ourselves against them.
Wow. So what does this all mean for us? If principles are the immovable lighthouses, how do we navigate our subjective ships toward actual measurable effectiveness?
Well, true effectiveness is defined in the text through the classic fable of the goose and the golden egg.
Ah, yes.
You know the story. A poor farmer discovers his pet goose has laid a glittering, pure gold egg. Every morning, another golden egg. He becomes fabulously wealthy.
But then he gets greedy.
Exactly. With the wealth comes impatience. He wants all the gold immediately, so he slaughters the goose and cuts it open.
And finds absolutely nothing inside.
Nothing. He permanently destroyed the asset that produced his wealth. Covey uses this fable to introduce the P/PC balance.
What?
P and PC. P stands for production of desired results. So, the golden eggs. PC stands for production capability, the health, welfare, and maintenance of the goose itself.
So effectiveness is maintaining the delicate balance between the two.
Exactly.
You see people absolutely destroying that balance every single day, especially in modern hustle culture. The sources actually give a simple physical example, the lawnmower.
Oh, right.
You buy a power lawnmower, you use it constantly to get the golden egg, which is the perfectly mowed lawn, but you never check the oil, you never sharpen the blades, you neglect the PC, the production capability.
And what happened?
2 seasons later, the engine seizes up. You focus so relentlessly on the output that you killed the machine.
And it becomes exponentially more destructive when we apply it to human assets. Consider a business example from the text. A restaurant is famous for serving incredible clam chowder.
Okay, you're making me hungry. But
Go. Customers line up out the door. Those are the golden eggs. A new owner buys the place and immediately looks for ways to boost short-term profit margins. He decides to water down the chowder.
Oh, no.
For a few weeks, the margins skyrocket. He's getting more golden eggs. But slowly, the customers realize the quality has dropped, they feel cheated, and they stop coming back.
He killed the goose.
He sacrificed the customer trust, the ultimate goose, for a temporary spike in production.
It applies just as brutally to parenting, too.
Yeah.
Covey actually admits to a moment where he demanded his 3-year-old daughter share her new birthday toys with the other kids.
Right, at her own party?
Yeah. He felt the social pressure of the other parents judging him, so he desperately wanted the golden egg, the appearance of raising a polite, sharing child. He tried reasoning, he tried bribing, and finally he just used his physical size and authority to pry the toy from her hands and give it to another kid.
Wow.
And the text uses a phrase here that feels like an absolute gut punch. Borrowing strength builds weakness.
It is a profound observation. By forcing the outcome, he damaged his daughter's internal development of discipline. She didn't learn to share. She learned that she could be physically overpowered.
Right.
He also damaged the relationship itself, the goose, by replacing a bond of cooperation with a dynamic of fear. He extracted the golden egg for the other parents to see, but he injured the goose to get it.
To build the strength of that goose, whether it's ourselves or our relationships, we have to build effective habits. And the sources define a habit as the intersection of 3 specific elements: knowledge, skill, and desire.
The big 3.
Yeah. Knowledge is the theoretical paradigm, knowing what to do and why to do it. Skill is the practical how to do it. And desire is the motivation, the actual wanting to do it. You need all 3.
And as we build those habits, we travel along what is called the maturity continuum. We all begin life at the stage of dependence.
Like infants.
Exactly. As infants, we rely entirely on others. The core paradigm of dependence is you. You take care of me. You provide for me. And crucially, if things go wrong, it's your fault.
But as we mature, we strive to reach independence. The paradigm shifts to I. I am responsible. I am self-reliant. I can choose my own path.
Right.
But the text points out something really countercultural here. Modern society absolutely obsesses over independence.
No, completely.
We idolize the self-made billionaire, the lone wolf innovator. We treat independence as the ultimate finish line of human development.
And it is a massive blind spot. Because independent thinking alone is entirely unsuited for an interdependent reality. Think about trying to build a marriage, raise a family, or run a complex corporate team.
You can't do it alone.
You cannot succeed in those deeply connected arenas acting as a purely independent solo operator. Playing an interdependent game with an independent mindset is like trying to play tennis with a golf club. The tool does not fit the environment.
I love that. So the true peak of maturity is interdependence, the paradigm of we. We can combine our talents. We can create something greater together.
But the catch is you cannot shortcut your way to interdependence. You have to actually achieve true independence first.
Right. You can't collaborate effectively if you don't even have control over yourself. That's why habits 1, 2, and 3 are private victories that build independence.
Which then allows for the public victories later on.
Exactly. Which brings us to the bedrock of it all. Habit 1, be proactive. To really grasp what proactivity means, we have to examine the excuses society gives us for our behavior.
The determinism maps.
Yes. Society hands us 3 maps of determinism. First is genetic determinism. My grandparents did it to me. I have a short temper because it's wired into my DNA.
Second is psychic determinism. My parents did it to me. My childhood trauma and my upbringing dictate my emotional reactions today.
And third is environmental determinism. My boss, my spouse, the terrible economy, or the political climate is making me miserable.
They're all just variations of Pavlov's dog. It's the stimulus and response model. You ring the bell, the dog drools. Something happens to me, I react in a predetermined way.
I am just a victim of my programming.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to break that model, the sources introduce the staggering story of Viktor Frankl.
Oh, this story is incredible.
It really is. Frankl was a brilliant psychiatrist deeply rooted in the Freudian tradition, which taught that your childhood experiences permanently shaped your destiny. But Frankl was also a Jewish man living in Europe during the Holocaust.
Wow.
He was stripped of his identity and imprisoned in the Nazi death camps.
Talk about the ultimate test of environmental determinism. He was placed in an environment designed to exert horrific, absolute control over every second of his existence.
Yes, his parents, his brother, and his wife all perished in the camps. He endured unimaginable torture, starvation, and degradation. Yet one day, naked and alone in a small room, Frankl experienced a revelation.
What?
He discovered what he called the last of the human freedoms. He realized that while his captors could dictate his physical environment, they could not dictate his internal identity. He discovered that between a stimulus and a response, there is a gap. There is a space.
A space.
And in that space, the individual has the absolute freedom to choose their response.
Just think about the weight of that for a second. Between the terrible thing happening to you and how you react to it, there is a space where you actually have control.
And Frankl actively utilized that space. Using self-awareness, his conscience, and his imagination, he built up his internal freedom. He would mentally project himself out of the camp, imagining himself standing in a warm lecture hall after the war, teaching his students about the psychological lessons he was learning in that very moment.
That is just mind-blowing resilience.
He cultivated his internal freedom until it grew larger than the external liberty of the Nazi guards holding him captive. He became a beacon of strength for the other prisoners, and incredibly, even for some of the guards.
That realization is the absolute beating heart of being proactive. Proactivity doesn't just mean taking initiative, it means recognizing that we are responsible. If you break the word down, we are responsible. We possess the ability to choose our response.
We subordinate our feelings to our values.
Yes. Reactive people are driven by what Covey calls social weather. If their boss praises them, the sun is shining and they are happy. If a coworker is rude, a storm rolls in and they are defensive.
Their emotional life fluctuates based on external conditions.
But proactive people carry their own weather. It doesn't matter if it rains or shines because their actions are rooted in their own internal values.
There is a really vivid example of this from one of Covey's seminars. A nurse in Sacramento stood up in front of the whole room and explained that she was the full-time caregiver for the most miserable, ungrateful patient imaginable.
Oof, that's tough.
He found fault with everything, never once said thank you, and his toxic attitude was ruining her life. she was taking her misery out on her family. When Covey introduced the concept of proactivity, she was initially furious at the suggestion that she was choosing to be miserable.
Yeah, because it's a bitter pill to swallow. I mean, to admit that you are an accomplice in your own misery strips away the comfort of playing the victim.
It strips away all your excuses. But she sat with the concept. And she realized that by automatically reacting to his bitterness, she was handing this patient the remote control to her emotional life.
Wow.
The moment she recognized that she had the power to choose her response, she said it felt like the doors of a prison cell swinging open. She stood up and told the room she was finally free. It perfectly embodies Eleanor Roosevelt's famous observation, "No one can hurt you without your consent."
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. You can actually diagnose whether you are operating from a proactive or reactive paradigm just by auditing your own vocabulary.
Oh, yes.
Our language exposes our internal maps. Reactive people use words that constantly absolve them of responsibility. They say, I have to do this, I can't, or he makes me so mad.
Proactive people use language that assumes responsibility. They say, I choose to, I prefer, or I will.
Exactly. And that language shift is perhaps most profound when it comes to how we view relationships, right?
Definitely. A man approached Covey after a seminar and confessed that his marriage was failing. He said, I just don't have the same feelings for her anymore. I don't love her, and she doesn't love me. What can I do?
And what did Covey say?
Covey looked at him and said, love her. The man was confused. He repeated, you don't understand. The feeling of love is gone. And Covey replied, then love her. If the feeling isn't there, that is a fantastic reason to love her.
Wait, so the guy was treating love like an affliction, like catching a cold.
Yeah.
It just happens to you. When it goes away, you're just out of luck.
Yes. Reactive people view love strictly as an uncontrollable emotion. If the feeling fades, they believe the relationship is dead. Proactive people understand that love is a verb.
Love is a verb.
It is a set of deliberate actions. It is sacrificing, listening, empathizing, affirming, and showing up. The feeling of love is simply the fruit that grows from the daily action of loving.
You subordinate your temporary emotional fluctuations to the higher value of your commitment to the relationship. I love that. And focusing on the actions you can take, rather than the feelings you can't control, leads us to the final framework we want to unpack today. The circle of concern versus the circle of influence.
This is such a practical tool.
It really is. Picture a large circle drawn on a whiteboard. That is your circle of concern. It contains everything you care or worry about. The state of the economy, the threat of nuclear war, what people think of you behind your back, your coworkers' annoying habits.
Basically everything keeping you up at night.
Right. Inside that large circle, draw a much smaller circle. That is your circle of influence. It contains only the things you actually have direct control over. Your own behavior, your own reactions, your own work ethic.
Where you choose to focus, your mental energy dictates your trajectory in life. Reactive people stare obsessively at the outer circle, the circle of concern.
The things they can't control.
Exactly. They fixate on the economy, the unfairness of their boss, the national news. This generates immense negative energy, a feeling of helplessness, and a culture of complaining. And because they are neglecting their own actions, their smaller circle of influence actually begins to shrink. They lose whatever leverage they had.
But proactive people focus their energy entirely on that inner circle of influence. They go to work on the things they can actually change, which almost always starts with themselves.
Right.
By doing that, they create a radiating positive energy. As they build trust, improve their own skills, and demonstrate reliability, their circle of influence actually expands outward, giving them more ability to affect the larger environment.
It all traces back to claiming that space between the stimulus and the response.
So, to synthesize this deep dive for you, we've explored the necessary evolution from the superficial, quick-fix personality ethic to the deep, root-level character ethic.
We have to change our maps.
Exactly. We've seen that if you want to reach a new destination, doubling your speed won't help if you need a paradigm shift to change your map.
Oh?
We've learned that true effectiveness requires constantly balancing the golden eggs of our daily production with the health of the goose, our underlying capability.
Don't kill the goose.
Right. And we've seen that the ultimate human freedom is recognizing that we are responsible, we carry our own weather.
You know, this raises an important question to leave you with. If borrowing strength builds weakness, as we saw with the parenting example, let's apply it to something very modern.
Right.
Think about the era of remote work and the always-on digital culture. Where in your professional life are you, or your organization, relying on positional authority to demand Slack responses at 10 p.m. or weekend emails.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You might be forcing the immediate golden egg of a fast reply, but consider the hidden cost. How quickly are you suffocating the goose by burning out the very people who produce the value?
That is a question worth bringing to your next team meeting. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take these principles, check your own maps, and choose to carry your own weather today.